first press record. And a couple other folks coming in. Awesome. Okay, we're just going to get this started. For those of you who are just joining us, just a fair warning that we are recording this. This will be used as a resource for those folks who will be not able to join us tonight. And so we want to be able to get this information out because this information, some of it is just general good backpacking and backcountry information. So yeah, so thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's 6:32 in Montana. I'm sure some of you are all around this country. So thank you for taking time to join us today. My name is Alex. My pronouns are he, him. I work at Empower Montana, and I also facilitate and created Here Montana, which is the outdoor program that we are working with for this, that you all will be joining. And Here Montana is focused on getting the BIPOC community outside, getting things covered through community education, building confidence. We just like to get outside together and do things as a community, building friendships, relationships, and being able to feel confident in the outdoors and our identities. And so we've been around, and we're for about 1.5 years now, and we're programmed through Missoula Parks and Recreation. And this summer we have a couple things going on. We have a couple backpacking trips, some rafting trips, some fishing trips, some hiking trips, etc. But we're most excited to talk today about a backcountry trip into the Bob Marshall Wilderness. And the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation is here. Rebecca is here from the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. So I will hand this off to her.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see some faces and some names up there. That's awesome. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Rebecca. My pronouns are her and she. And I'm with the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. And just a brief overview of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. It's kind of just south of Glacier National Park in the northwest corner of Montana. And it's 1.5 million acres, so it's quite large. And it is a designated wilderness, which means there's no mechanized use within the wilderness. There's no permanent structures in the wilderness. It's all just kind of wild landscape. There's trails. There's a few Forest Service cabins that trail crew folks work out of, but most people just hike in there or ride horses in there. And it's a pretty great place, pretty remote. And so the foundation, what we do, part of our mission is connect Americans with their wilderness heritage. And we do stewardship kind of work in there as one aspect of what we do, where we have a bunch of volunteers come in and do some trail work and help open trails and that kind of stuff. We do a bunch of internships where we have interns, about 11 interns a season that are like college age and they want to get some outdoor experience, and they come and it's a paid internship and they work with us or work with the Forest Service. We have Artist Wilderness Connections, so we recruit artists and send them out in the wilderness, and they get to stay at one of the Forest Service cabins. We also have a Packer Apprentice program, and where we pick 2 apprentices to learn about packing on stock each season. And then we're also doing this great trip with Alex. So this is an awesome way for us to connect Americans with their wilderness heritage by helping people who don't normally get the opportunity to learn some stuff about backpacking and outdoors and all that good stuff. So that's me.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So yeah, I think there's a couple things, please utilize the chat. If you have any questions, general questions, specific questions, just go ahead and throw it in the chat and we'll be happy to answer those as we're going along, most likely towards the end. And we're just gonna kind of explain the trip and then just be able to, kind of give you all the breakdown as much as we can. But first, I want to be clear too that this trip is, like the Bob Marshall, like Rebecca said, is massive and it's a big part of Montana. But the outdoors in general, we want to acknowledge, that first and foremost, that land is Salish Kootenai, Blackfeet, Crow, and many others that have called that place home. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. And, that's something that we want to respect and honor during our time out there. And also, as we're traveling through, learning about the space, learning about the flora, the fauna, the fish, the waterways, all of those different things, and the big geographical features that are out there. And through that process, we hope to improve access to the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and also just improve representation in the outdoors. And so in doing so, photographs, that's something that we, can utilize, not just for our program, but thinking bigger than just the program, thinking kind of, what does an image of an Asian person like myself, or a Black and brown person out there in the middle of the woods, what does that mean? And, I think that can mean something different for each person. But I think in general, it's such a powerful way to share a story, to share an experience, and to encourage other folks that may look like you and experience life like you to feel empowered to get out there and do things and explore. And yeah. And so with that, we kind of want to go over the purpose and the goals of the trip. So we want this trip to be as much as a fun experience, but also a learning experience as possible. So we want to make sure that this time is filled with education, discussion times, time for us to just chill out and hang out and do our thing. And so when we first get there, we're going to be in the front country for a day, and that will kind of get us to the trailhead area. And so we'll be hanging out. We'll have some time with some Indigenous leaders to hear about Blackfeet land, and we'll also be able to hear kind of and meet some of the packers that we have. And then we'll be moving in towards the trip, where we'll be essentially learning things as they go. I mean, the first thing we have to do is, we're going to be walking, but learning about navigation, learning about which direction we're moving in, why we're moving in that direction, utilizing landmarks, etc. And then we'll be coming into camp. And once we're in camp, I mean, that is a whole thing. And I'm sure some of you are experienced with that. And so we just want people to know, that when we're doing this, that equipment and gear is totally an arbitrary thing. You don't need to have the best gear. We'll be talking more about that later. Yeah. And so Rebecca, did you have anything to share for the purpose and goals of the trip on behalf of the Wilderness Foundation?
Yeah, I think, it's really important, I feel like, to have the ability to be in a group of people who are learning alongside with you. Reading through all these applications, there's a lot of people that have some experience. There's some people that want experience. And I think that's awesome. I mean, this is what this trip is about, so that you can come on this trip, and myself and our other co-leader, Meg and Alex, and all of our speakers and everything can teach everybody and empower everybody to say, you know what, I'm going to go on a trip by myself, or I'm going to go hike on a trail because I feel more confident outdoors now. And I realize that I have belonging to this place. This is Forest Service land. If you pay taxes, you are owner of it as much as anybody else. And everybody has a right to be welcome there, and everybody is welcome there. And we really want to just introduce folks and help people, anybody feel comfortable out there.
Awesome. And here's a couple of things. We're just going to start this off right off the bat because we know it's a question. And, it's where are we going to use the bathroom? Where are we going to poop and pee? Because everybody does that. It's a natural thing. And it's important to know where to do that, because out in the wilderness area, as much as it is the woods, and to the extent, it's pick a tree or pick somewhere safe that you feel, there are rules, and those rules are not necessarily enforced per se. I wouldn't say that anyone is out there enforcing those rules, but it's really for us to preserve that space and to keep it clean for other folks, to keep it clean for the environment as well. And so we want folks to be cautious of what they're bringing into their toiletry bags. We want people to be, just thinking about, the next person that may be coming through that land, after you, and the care that has been taken to maintain that land prior to us being there. And so bathrooms are going to be in the ground. And what does that mean? That means, taking bags with us, that will be taking things that are non-disposable, taking that out with us. And we're not leaving that in the woods, because it's important. I mean, depending on what that is, but it's really important for us not to leave things, that animals or that will just create more waste in wilderness areas. Rebecca, did you want to share some more on that?
Yeah, that's always, we bring a bunch of people in the wilderness every year, and 50% of them are returning, so 50% are new, and that's always the biggest, well, that and bears, right? Are the biggest anxiety for people. And fair enough, right? It's pretty strange to think about hygiene in the backcountry. But we're all going to be out there, like Alex said, doing it. How we do it at the foundation, when we have a larger group, which we will, we're going to have 8 participants and then a handful of leaders. So we'll have a group of about 13 people back there. And what we generally do is make one big latrine, so dig a big hole out there, and people use the bathroom in the hole, and then we can even leave toilet paper out there because the hole is big enough. Then we bury it all out. Especially with, like, I feel like during Corona right now, more people are getting outside, which is great, but more people are going to the bathroom inappropriately outside, and you're finding like waste alongside the trails and stuff. And gosh, it's so easy to do it the right way, where nobody has to see that anymore, or potentially walk on it, or have your dog dig around in some human waste. So it's pretty easy. And also for women who are menstruating out in the wilderness, we can go over those kind of things as well. In fact, we will probably pull all the women aside and talk about that as well before we get going back there. And if you have any questions ahead of time about that, I'm always available to reach out to as well.
And next, we're going to talk about food. Obviously we all need to eat, and that's important. And is that something you need to bring from wherever you all are coming from? Absolutely. If there are specific dietary restrictions that you have in your life, please bring those things, because it's important that that you are comfortable and that you have those things that you need to make sure that you feel safe and comfortable and provided for. But in general, the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation is graciously providing food for us. And I'll let Rebecca kind of explain that process, because it's not like we're going to be carrying all of that stuff either.
Yeah, so this is kind of a unique trip in that unlike normal backpacking, where you have to carry all of your gear and all of your personal stuff and all of your food on your back, we have the luxury of having some pack support with one of our board members and packers, Frank Vitale. He's got 6 mules that he'll load up with gear, and each mule can carry 50 pounds. So we could eat pretty nice out there. But how we do it is we'll send out to all the people that we choose. We send out a registration that has stuff about dietary restrictions, any allergies, that kind of stuff. And then we'll get together and come up with a menu. Myself and Meg and Alex will come up with a menu, and we'll do the food shopping and get it all together and bring it out there. And we pack it all in these bear-proof boxes that the mules and horses pack back there. And we usually have a breakfast with coffee, and then lunch, and then snacks, and then dinner, appetizers and dessert. So it's nobody's gonna go hungry out there. I guess the kind of tricky part about this is we're hoping that we can teach some folks about backpacking and getting out there on their own, but you wouldn't want to be carrying like an avocado in your backpack on a backpacking trip. But we're going to carry it on this trip because we can, and why not go luxurious, right?
Yeah, and with that said, we will also have some dry food meals, just to kind of show that process and kind of being able to explain more about what a backpacking pack may look like if you don't have mules, which I'm guessing most folks don't. I would love some mules, but I don't. And so most times I am carrying dry food. And dry food, it was definitely a new experience for me when I first got into backpacking, and I was very curious about it. In fact, I was curious enough to just try it dry, and it's not good. It's kind of gross, actually. It actually doesn't taste like food. But anyways,
Probably takes
so,
like
so
a year to digest too.
yeah, it's probably really terrible for that as well. But yeah, I mean, so we'll have some food like that as well that we'll be able to just kind of experiment, see what that weight looks like. And during the day, as much as engaging work that we're going to do in terms of like talking to the packers, talking with some of the guests that will have joining us for some of those days. A lot of that time is going to be spent with you being able to embrace where you're at, embracing that space and embracing the quietness, embracing nature. And, I think, this is a trip for adults. And so I think, being bored is okay, and embracing that boredom is something that is a blessing, and something that I feel like is so hard to feel out these days. And something that we should have discussed earlier was that we don't have any sort of way to communicate out there, out into the outer world. Me, Rebecca, and the trip lead and the trip guides will have emergency communication devices like a spot device and an inReach, and I believe potentially a satellite phone. But those sorts of tools will be used realistically just for emergencies. But those are extremely very, very capable devices. They work. They're made to work. They're made to send out signals, emergency text messages, etc. Direct dropping our location if something were to happen. And I do believe that the Wilderness Foundation has folks that will be kind of monitoring our trip, making sure that things are going right, from Hungry Horse area, which is just close to where we'll be. And I think that so yeah, I mean, so in that time period, I just really thinking about like, what is it going to be like when we're quiet and there isn't much to do? Well, some of that is going to be, we're going to be practicing what a pack would look like and go on small day hikes and just be able to kind of feel out, what you would throw into a bag, in a day pack, what's important to do and not do. And that also is to include food, because food, depending on what you're doing out in the backcountry, even if it's a day hike from your base camp, it can look very different than coming back and cooking your dinner, or making breakfast. And yeah, and so that leads us to kind of more what I was talking about with the emergency protocols. Emergency protocols are important for everyone to know. Hopefully you would be able to communicate any sort of medical, mental, physical, spiritual, anything you're feeling that is not feeling right, to communicate that with me, Rebecca, and our other trip leaders, because it's important that we don't need to obviously know any of your personal business if you don't want that to be out there, but it is important for us to know in terms of we are going to be fairly far back in the backcountry, and we want you to know that you can trust us, you can rely on us, and if you need someone to just listen, we're there for that. And we're also there to provide any sort of basic medical needs that may need to happen. But we're also hoping that everyone stays safe. But this is a discussion, and yeah, and if an emergency were to happen, Rebecca, if you wanted to explain more of that, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, so myself and Meg have like backcountry wilderness first aid experience and training. I'm not sure if Alex does or not, but so we have a bunch of training and that kind of stuff. And a lot of it is just kind of risk management, making sure we don't get in a situation like that to begin with. And that's a lot of what this education will be. Of course, we're all human and accidents happen. And if that happens, we carry, like Alex said, we carry inReaches, and then we also have a Forest Service radio. We'll be checking in daily with the Forest Service, just letting them know, checking in, making sure they like to know when we're out there and what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. If there's something on your end, we'll give you that contact information. If you have a family or something like that, and someone needs to get a hold of you, they'll be able to do that. So we'll give them that information to call the ranger station, and the ranger station can relay a message to us fairly easily. in the 10 years that I've worked at the foundation, and probably a couple thousand people that we've had in the wilderness with us, we've had 2 helicopter evacuations, and one was a packer who fell off his horse and dislocated his shoulder, and another was a girl who got a tool to the leg and had to get some stitches. So it's not common. But we are super trained on that. We train a lot on all that kind of stuff. But it's pretty uncommon.
Yep, and we'll also have first aid kits,
Mhm.
and I also have my wilderness first aid as well. And I think also it's important to think that what will you need when you're out there? So if you need ibuprofen and that's something that you use to just get to bed or relax, or you just need it, please bring some. I mean, we will have some, but those sorts of things kind of can disappear very quickly. Basic things that you can buy in the store that you don't need a lot of. What you can do is, we're only going to be out there for 5 days, so you don't need to bring an entire bottle of Advil. You can just bring 6 Advils or 6 ibuprofens. You don't need to plan to be out there longer than than the 5 days, because we were definitely going to bring everyone home, and so you'll be able to get back to your medicine or the bigger, larger stashes later. um, and then that goes down to wilderness, or not wilderness, wildlife. We're going to be in the wilderness, and in the wilderness there's lots of wildlife, and that's really important to discuss. Not everyone is living in Montana, and even for the folks that are in Montana, bears are out there. They're a part of our landscape, they're a part of our land. This is their land as well, and it's important to know that those sorts of encounters are very rare, and those sorts of encounters, especially in group settings, are also very rare. But we're going to have food. We're going to be out there walking around. And so Rebecca is more familiar with the area. And so if you kind of wanted to talk about that part, Rebecca.
Yeah, who here wrote on their application that they're most worried about bears? There's like there's a lot of people. And honestly, like, the people worried about bears is what keeps the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation getting volunteers year after year, because some people just don't want to go by themselves because they're worried about bears, so they come with us, and it's great. Yeah, there's bears out there. There's all kinds of wildlife. There's bears, there's mountain lions, there's squirrels. You know, one of the most dangerous animals that you'll find in the Bob is probably a tick. Um, and by July, tick season's over, so we won't have to worry about that too much. But we do are very diligent about leave no trace camping, and so we're actually going to have a talk by a bear biologist ahead of time, and she's going to go over a lot of great bear safety things to learn about. We carry bear spray. We'll teach everybody how to use it. If you want to carry it, we have a bunch of extra that you can carry if you want. We've gone and camped many, many times out there in the wilderness. And if we're really lucky, we get to see a bear, but it's really uncommon to see a bear. All of our food is kept in bear proof containers. All of the smelly toiletries and stuff. So you'll bring like a bag of your toothpaste and whatever you need. And we'll store that in the bear proof containers at night. And not in your tent. And, we cook separate from where we eat, separate from where we go to the bathroom, so that when you're sleeping at night, if a bear were to wander through camp, they don't even care about you in your tent. They're wondering if we left any food out. They'll sniff around and find out that we didn't, and then they move on. Of all the years I've been working in the backcountry, I've probably seen a dozen bears, and 11 of them were their butts running away from me once they saw me. So they have really cute butts, so that's an advantage. But yeah, we'll give a talk about mountain lions as well. I don't think we've had really any mountain lion encounters. If we did, that'd be pretty cool as well. When we're traveling in a big group like this, it's really uncommon to see that kind of wildlife, especially when we have horses and mules with us. They don't really like to be around other four-legged critters as much as well. So yeah, that's part of the training that we'll do within the trip. The hope is after that, yeah, if you come out with a group and you have the right training and you get a little bit more knowledge about behavior of bears, and you know, a couple weeks later when you're out hiking on your own or going to do something, you'll feel a lot more confident about what to do if you see one, how to avoid seeing them, or how to avoid having negative encounters, and teaching your friends how to do the same.
Yes, and I would like to add just, little squirrels and mice are way more of a nuisance than anything else. If you like to sneak, sometimes I like to have a snack right before going to bed. If it's really cold at night, it keeps you warm. And if you leave that wrapper out, you'll find that you have a tent mate, and that that's not always fun. And so, I think bigger than my fear of bears, I am actually more worried about mice and small squirrels getting into my bags and chewing through things. And then I come home with like a half of a backpack because my strap is ripped up and things like that. And so, yeah. And the next part of this conversation is about gear. So I know that's a conversation that even for myself is always and constant, because things are changing, and gear is something that provides safety, it provides warmth, it provides cooling systems if that's what it is, it provides comfort, but also gear is expensive, and the way that gear is perceived and portrayed is also expensive. And I think it's really important to think about what we're wearing and what it is that you actually need. And I will be the first person to tell you I'm wearing a down jacket, but this is not absolutely needed at all whatsoever. It is helpful and it is useful, but a sweater, a cotton t-shirt, or not, yeah, a cotton t-shirt and a cotton sweater, and or like a wool layer, like those are all different things that play just as much as an important role as a down jacket, and it can serve you the same way. And we just want to talk about kind of the fact that you don't need to have the gear. Like if you search on Instagram backpacking, we don't need to have the nicest things. It's just not needed. And yeah, I mean, Rebecca, if you wanted to speak more on that as well.
Yeah, gear's an interesting one. I'm admittedly not a gearhead, so I come from the background of finding gear at thrift stores and hand-me-downs and that kind of stuff, and that's what I've always done. My backpacking backpack I've had for 25 years. I don't like it anymore. I wish I could get a new one, but I can't. So I make it work. We do have a gear library. We have sleeping bags, pads, sleeping tents, or tents, and some packs that we can certainly lend out. And we're happy to do that. And we'll have that kind of set up for folks to choose if they need to. You know, what Alex said, very few people when you're out there in the wilderness actually look like what you see in the REI catalog. Most of them are wearing pants that they've had for 15 years. I myself and a lot of our crews go to the thrift stores and get button down flannels and wear the heck out of those, and then burn them in the end of the year once they're gross. But yeah, there's some things to definitely make you comfortable, like I get cold at night, so a down jacket is really nice, a knit hat, that kind of stuff. I think that investing in decent gear is worth it. Like I said, I've had my pack for a long time. The pants I hike in, I've had for 11 years at least. So when getting gear, it's good to get quality stuff that's going to last a long time. And then you won't need very much of it. As the evolution of a outdoors person, which most of you already are, as you can probably all relate, is every few years you get a new piece of gear and just kind of keep it up. Every few years I'll get a new backpack, or I'll get a new pair of boots, or I'll get a new this, but nobody's getting a whole new outfit every year to go spend out time outdoors. And also, I would say if you are a gear nerd and like that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't necessarily bring it on this trip, we'll be sitting around a campfire at night and those sparks fly off. And if you get a spark in your brand new jacket, you're going to be pretty bummed out about that. I carry duct tape because my jacket's full of duct tape. But yeah, so gear is something that I feel like the more you are comfortable in the outdoors, you figure out what you want and what you need, and then you can start gaining your collection. This will be a good place to ask those questions from your fellow person on the trip. You know, whenever I'm out in the woods with new people and I see something cool, I'm like, hey, where'd you get those pants? I really like those. Tell me about the zipper on it, you know, whatever. We don't feel like you need to show up in wearing all the newest, nicest stuff.
Yeah, and I just want to add to, like what Rebecca was saying, you definitely don't need to have the newest and nicest stuff. We're going to be putting some miles down, and I think it's important to also consider that you have comfortable footwear, and that's something that you're considering. And sometimes brand new footwear is not comfortable, and it takes time to break those down and break them in. And so, if you have a pair of shoes or boots that you do like, and they work for you, then they will absolutely work for you out in the backcountry as well. It's harder to buy a brand new pair of boots and then have blisters and have a hard time. That just kind of sets you up on this path of of band-aids on your feet and feeling like, oh, how are we gonna break these shoes in? And I did that once, and what we did was we put my boots in a bag, and we literally just hit them around trees and just beat the shoes up enough to where they got more flexible. And I won't make that mistake again. I will wear worn shoes. And so that goes with footwear as well. There's also there's the campground, and you don't need to be in boots or even in sneakers. It's going to be July in Montana. It's really hot outside. So barefoot or slippers or chacos or sandals, that's probably what we'll be wearing most of the time around camp, like in the morning, in the afternoon, during dinner. Yeah, you just don't need to have socks and shoes on all the time. And, I think that sometimes it's perceived that we're going to be out in this crazy place. Why wouldn't you wear boots? Well, it's going to be really hot outside. Your feet don't need to sweat all day long. They want to get some air too and feel the nature as well. And so just considering those things, with the gear. And then Rebecca, you know more about the pack and the stock folks, and so if you wanted to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, packing is a very traditional form of transportation out there. People use horses and mules to pack in supplies for trail crews. There's a bunch of folks that do hunting camps out there, outfitted trips, that kind of stuff. Foot or on horse is the only way you can travel in the wilderness. So it's pretty common. The reason why we want to have pack support on this project, we do have pack support on all of our volunteer projects. It's a big part of how we get into what we do. And quite honestly, when I came to the Wilderness Foundation, I did not have any experience with packers. And my stereotype of what a packer is an older white conservative man. And I was really intimidated and felt really out of place around packers. And then I started getting to know packers, and I realized my stereotype was completely wrong. They are a lot of older men, but they're not exactly what I anticipated. So the hope is, again, that everybody who comes on this trip is going to feel empowered to go out into the wilderness on their own. And if they run into packers, you'll feel confident knowing that you can talk to them and engage with them and have conversations, and that you don't have to feel like you're off put. You can have conversations and they'll say, oh man, you know something about packing. And it's cool, I don't know if anybody is, around horses and mules a lot, but it's cool to be around horses and mules. They're kind of a neat animal, and they read your personality really well. And Frank, who's our packer, he's packed for a long time, and he's pretty funny guy and has some great stock that are his family, and he's raised a lot of these mules from little tiny mules and brought them out there. And it's really cool to see the skill that people are still doing out there. And I just really want that you guys to all have experience encountering that and learning about it. And who knows, maybe you'll want to do some packing in your future.
Yeah.
So, and how it works is, Frank will show up at the trailhead with his, he has one riding mule, and then his friend Chrissy, who packs with him, will be there to help out. And they'll have 5 or 6 pack animals. And essentially we'll give them our tents and our sleeping bags and maybe a personal bag of stuff. And then all of our food, our, tarps and our pots and pans and stoves and all that stuff. We give that to him, and him and Chrissy will divvy them up and weigh all the things and put them in boxes and wrap them up and then strap them to the side of the mules and then carry them in. And then they're going to camp near us while we're out there as well. So we'll be able to have some campfire talks, and you can go scratch some mule ears. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome. And yeah, I think we're at that point now where we can kind of discuss some questions. Oh, actually, there is one thing that we do need to talk about, which is this process of the application, what that looks like, etc. And so we will be working through these applications throughout the week, and we will be closing the applications on the 16th. And so we just want to make sure that people have ample time to apply, etc. And we also, we'll let people know kind of the following week. We're already kind of looking through applications. Thank you to everyone that took time to apply. It's really awesome to hear, what encourages you to be out there. And and also, we also just want to say that there is just a small group of people that we can take, but it opens the door to many more trips with the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation, a big relationship to build there. And we're super excited and stoked that so many people have applied. And it will be definitely a process for us to, just figure out, how and who we can take. And so we just want to let folks know, that we appreciate you applying. We're very, very grateful for it. We're super stoked, and that there's more to look forward to. Like if this summer, if it's not this summer, then next summer and this following summers, we want to build this relationship. And we also think that it's super important that that we keep this principle of getting folks outside, is really thinking about racial justice and social justice, and how we can be as equal and equitable when we're talking about the outdoors. And that's what this program and this relationship with the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and just like what we really want together, is to build a space where everyone feels included. And so that can be, a yearly thing where we have multiple trips, etc. And so just wanting to make sure that people know that. The spaces that we're offering, we have 8 spaces. And so we'll be selecting those 8 folks just as, as that time comes along, to answer that question. And then we also have a question around what's a typical day hiking in the backcountry, and how early are we up and cleaning our camp? Well, I'll say our first hike is just straight to the campsite. And so that'll be in the afternoon, I believe, because we'll be getting to our base area, to just, meet everyone, get off the vans. And what that will look like is we'll rendezvous in Missoula, and from Missoula we'll be driving to our location where we'll meet Rebecca. And once we meet with Rebecca and her team, we'll be moving to a front country area where we'll kind of, essentially, like, it's the process of letting it all go. And I think it's very awesome. It's just a great way that I just love that the Bob Marshall Wilderness has that area, that front country area, because it can be a little startling to just like go from moving 100 miles an hour, knowing what's happening on the other side of the world on Twitter, and then all of a sudden it's like 0. But the front country allows for us to be like, okay, here we are, we're gonna, we're getting ready. So we'll spend a night there, and then yeah. And so a typical day, I would say, I mean, it just depends, but our first day is going to be 6+ miles, I believe. And yeah, if you wanted to answer those questions in terms of how early are we up and cleaning our camp.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Like Alex said, we're going to spend the first 2 nights at this front country camp, which is still, there's no cell range out there. It's still pretty deep in the mountains. But we're going to get kind of accustomed, like he said, to kind of being off the grid there before we hike into our backcountry camp. So the morning that we do our hike in, a typical morning is whether we're at camp or we're hiking out, whatever, we have coffee on at 7 a.m., breakfast at 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then from there, if we're packing up camp and moving that day, then we'll start packing up and try to get on the trail by 10 or 11. If we're not moving that day, when we're in the backcountry, we'll have a day off back there where we can go fish and day hike and whatever. So it's pretty laid back. We don't have a tight schedule those days. The day that we hike out will be, again, breakfast by 8 and then start packing up and hiking out and back to the trailhead around maybe 2 o'clock on the road by 2:30 to get back to Missoula, which is about a 4-hour drive. So that's kind of what that will look like. There's no huge hurry out there. We're not needing to get, it's not like have a tight schedule or anything, but as you spend more time out there, you'll just, I don't know about any of you guys, but when I'm out in the backcountry, I feel like I go to bed at like 7:30 at night. So it's like, okay, let's get up now. I've slept for 8 hours, 10 hours. So we're not moving too fast. We'll all take our time back there. The hike in is about 6.5 miles, and it's we're not going up over any big passes or anything, but it is kind of up and down a little bit. So an average in shape hiker will hike that in about 2 miles an hour. So it'd be about 3 hours hiking in. I would say we'll probably stop a little bit, have some water, have some chats, make sure we're all doing good. So I'd say like 4 or 5 hours to hike into camp. And then once we get to camp, we're not moving that camp until we hike out. So we'll be staying at that same camp and then packing up and hiking out that day that we leave.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that this is literally for all abilities. Like, we want you to take your time, feel comfortable. Like, I just got a knee surgery, so I'm not moving anywhere fast. I'm trying to get, I was trying to figure out if I could even hitch a ride with the Packers, but that's not possible. So I'll be taking my time in the back. And so, yeah. And, also something that I feel like is like a stereotype of backpacking is like, you got to get to your campsite, but I think in this experience, taking time to just embrace the space that we're in. The Bob Marshall is huge. And while we're hiking in, there are beautiful views. There are some parts where you're just in the forest, but just embracing that and being able to be there and taking your own time. I will just hang out in the back, and there is no rush. Like Rebecca said, if people make it to camp before, that's totally fine. They can set up camp for us, and when we get there, we get there, and so there is no rush. And so we just want people to know that, even though we may be going up and down hills, it is for all abilities, and we welcome that. And we welcome folks that may have never hiked before, because it's such a great way to just go for a walk, really. I mean, I think that it can seem like a lot because there's some vocabulary like packing and backpacking and boots, but we're just moving our feet forward, and and we can take our time to do that. And like I said, there's no rush. If anything, we get to come to a camp that's already made, but sometimes that can be a blessing.
Appetizers are ready.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of being able to, I mean, during the days we have some activities planned, maybe some quick day hikes, going down to the river, walking down to the river, etc. And so, I think just being mobile, being able to move around and waking up early in camp. Yeah, I never wake up late. Because in July it's really hot, and that sun, when it hits your tent, it just automatically becomes a sauna. And well, being in a sauna in your sleeping bag is like not the most pleasant feeling. And so I like to just get out there, and rather I would prefer actually just to take a nap during the day, like in some grass or something. And that's a great way to just catch up on some sleep if you didn't get good sleep. And yeah, and taking breaks, and again, just being able to embrace the space and the time that you have to just think about things and have your own time. We really want to make sure that, again, like we'll have tons of engaging stuff, but we also want to make sure that we're on a relaxed schedule and people have time to think about those things that we haven't had the time to think about. It's been a crazy year for everybody. And I think, having time to process those things is important. And being able to process that in a beautiful space is even more of a blessing. And so we want people to take advantage of that as well. Yeah. And so do any folks have any more questions? Please feel free to throw it in the chat and we can address those as those come in. Let's see here if there's anything else that we have on our list.
I'll also add too that, what Alex said about timing and stuff, we're all living these like really busy lives and doing a lot of stuff. And here we are at, 7 o'clock on a Zoom meeting. And just being outside is a time to just pause it all. And that's what this trip is about. We're not, there's no timelines, we'll have dinner when we're hungry, and we'll eat when we're hungry, and we'll sleep when we're tired, and we'll get up and hang out and check things out. So yeah, there's no rush on anything. This is why we like going outdoors, because you get to turn it off. And this is not a work trip. The Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation does a lot of trail maintenance volunteer trips where we are up at 8 o'clock on the trail doing work, finish work at 4:30, go back to camp. This is not one of those. So we're turning that dial off.
Yeah, and with turning the clock off, I think another thing too is, it's also been a stressful year for the BIPOC community, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that and embrace being in a space together with different people from different ethnicities, different races, different cultures, in the middle of nowhere on a map. And I think there's something really beautiful about that and special, and something that we can share with one another, and a space that we can hold for one another. And I think that's something also that, yeah, it's important. And that comes with not having a really strict timeline, and just being around one another, and thinking about, how is it that, we end up here, or why is it that, that we are out here, et cetera. And just thinking through those things. I mean, this doesn't have to be some sort of like existential trip where we're like going to write a book after, but I'm just saying that there's a lot to think about, and it's very special that we can have this opportunity, and very thankful to the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation for providing this, because yeah, it's not something that we see every day. And I think that we can celebrate those things. And yeah, and we're super excited from the Here Montana side to work with the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. And we're super stoked that everyone is taking time with us to join us tonight. Yeah. Did you have anything? I mean, we don't have any more questions. So did you have anything else for us, Rebecca?
No, just like Alex said, I'm really excited that we partnered with Here Montana. And gosh, seeing all these applications come in has just been like so exciting for us, all of us at the foundation. I shared it with some of the things with some of our board members, and it's just really great to see people from all over the country really applying to have a space to enjoy themselves in the outdoors and learn some stuff, and that we can facilitate that. We're really honored to do that and to play that role. And it really just goes to show how much more of these we need. So we only have spots for 8, and we've had 40 people apply, and gosh, I'd love to take every single person out there in the woods, and maybe next year we can. So this year we're kind of this is our first time doing this, and we're gonna work on it and see how it goes and improve it for next year, and then have more folks, more opportunities in the years to come. So it's great.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out again. We appreciate you all. And yeah, and if it's not this year, there will be more opportunities. So definitely stay tuned for those. And yeah, and we hope that you found this information to be, in general, encouraging to be outside. You know, being out there is can be, there are so many stereotypes, these unwritten rules, etc. But hopefully me and Rebecca were able to kind of bust some of those and say, you can just wear jeans and you don't need to wear gear. And, you know, we're just going to be out there hanging out. There's no such thing as time. And, you know, we just want to make sure that people feel comfortable and know that the outdoors can be a space for you, and it should be a space for you. And it's a space that you don't need to have the world's ideas of who you should be or how you should be trailing behind you. It should be for you and what you expect it to be, and what you make it out to be. Yeah. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
I just want to add one more thing too, is that, you know, us at the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation, we love to help people answer questions about outdoors, whether you're going to join us on a trip or you're going to just go out and hike on your own. Feel free to reach out to us and ask, hey, you know, I'm looking at this pair of hiking boots. Are these decent? Or like, have you ever gone on this trail? Or what do you know? Do you know anybody who's doing this trip? Like, those are the kind of questions we love to answer. So anytime anybody has any question about that kind of stuff, please feel free to reach out and ask us. We're happy to help.
Oh, and you all are hiring too.
Yes.
Yes. I'm just gonna plug that.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We're hiring a full-time year-round position, which is a pretty big deal for a nonprofit. The position is kind of a outdoor or a partnership and education coordinator, and that is we partner with a lot of people here in Montana, for one, you know, Sierra Club, Glacier Queer Alliance, a bunch of people, and we're looking for someone to help us strengthen our partnerships and find more groups to partner with, like Outdoor Afro, Latino Outdoors, those kind of organizations. And then also start developing some outdoor education curriculum for folks. So maybe we'll start having some YouTube videos about how to pack a pack, how to read a map, that kind of stuff. We're education stuff around the Bob Marshall Complex, help with volunteer recruitment, help with volunteer coordination. Yeah, we're advertising that through the Bridge Project right now, which is a partnership between Greening Youth Foundation and there's another organization, but they are working to hire some folks, and we're partnering with them to do the hiring on that for now, and then we'll open it up to just the public after that. And I wish I could speak more on it, but I'm not the one who's who's doing the hiring in our organization. It's kind of I'm hearing of it. So if you want more information, though, we do have it on our website.
Yeah, and then here Montana is not hiring, but we have a ton of other summer activities for this summer. So if you're in Montana, or if you're visiting, or if you're planning a trip, please join us. All of our information is just on @HereMontana, and that's on our Instagram page. So yeah, give us a follow, check us out, and yeah, and we'll definitely be in touch with everybody. Thank you all so much, and yeah, we hope you all find something fun to do this evening.
Thank you, guys.
See y'all.